Hello and welcome to another Inventor Tips and Tricks video. Today, we're making it up as we go along again. Quite, that's what I do best. It's all about fillets, this one. I'm going to show you everything, well, as much as you need, as much as I know about fillets. We're going to look at fillets in depth. As much as you need to know about fillets. You might be thinking to yourself, I know what a fillet is. Or you might be thinking, hey, I've always wondered what a fillet is. Who knows which side of the spectrum you're on there? I don't know. But we're going to cover them in depth. Now, if you don't know what a fillet is this button here. Now, you can have a fillet either in a part file or in an assembly. It can be an assembly feature or it can be put inside a part file. We'll not go into that. But either way, it does the same thing. A fillet is taking a sharp edge. So something like this, you know, we've got a metal bracket here and it's got some serious sharp edges going on here, some sharpies which could slice your fingers. If this was to be manufactured with an absolute razor sharp edge there and you pick that up, that could slice your fingerage there. We've got some health and safety issues going on there. So a fillet is you click fillet and then you click an edge and it puts a little round on the edge like that. It puts a little radius on the edge and you click OK and then there's your fillet. You might have done that already and you've went, I can do fillets, I'm the boy, yeah, no problem. Well, there is more to it than that. There's a lot more you can do with fillets which you might have just never figured out, because, you know, if you don't use the dialog box and you just use this clusterfuck of absolute nonsense which floats around the screen here, you might have never realised that there's a massive dialog box up here with a load of buttons. What do all these buttons do? That's what I'm going to show you. What do all these buttons do? Right, so forgetting this absolute bollocks nonsense, we'll move that out of the way. We're going to look at what the dialog box can do for us. So there are a number of different fillet types that we can use, and there's a number of different options, selection modes, some ticky boxes that we can play with. So where to start first? Right, well, I guess we'll start in the middle here. What can we do in this area here? Well, when you launch the fillet command, you're presented with a little bit in the middle here which says 0 selected in the radius, and you might be thinking, well, alright, well, I just click an edge and it just does it. Well, like I said, there's a bit more you can do here. If you wanted to, you can build up multiple fillets. So, for example, I can click this edge here, and that's going to put a 2mm fillet all the way around this edge. If I wanted to change that, I can obviously select this little dialog box bit here, and I can put in a new radius value. Alternatively, if you want to, you can grab the orange arrow and then you can just drag that and move it, and it will change the size of the fillet dynamically just by dragging the arrow. If you're working on a bit of a small model, then just the nature of the grid system that the cursor works on it, you might find that it just drags it too big from the slightest movement of the mouse, but never mind. You can click and drag that if you want to, or you can just manually manipulate the fillet radius in this dialog box. And that's now confirmed that we've got 12 edges selected. You might think 12 edges, but I just clicked one. Well, that's because Inventor has optimized this edge for single selection. So you've clicked that edge and it's essentially looped the edges because they're all joined together with tangent arcs and lines and curves and stuff. It's all one continuous edge. In total, there are 12 edges. I'm not going to count them. Trust me, there's 12 of them. I did say you can optimize this for multiple edges and multiple selection sets. So if you want to do that, what you can then do is say click to add. And then it'll go, well, okay, start clicking more stuff. And you go, oh, fair enough. Well, I can then click this edge here. And it's going to say, well, you've now picked up 3 edges, and you can have them on a different radius if you want to. So in this one fillet command, it's going to fillet all these edges by 2mm, and then this bottom edge here by 3mm. And then you can say, well, actually add this side to it as well. 6 set at 3mm. And you can crack on. You can have as many as you want. You can click to add, click to add, click to add, and you can create as many fillets as you want in one command. Click OK. Fillet 6 that we've got down here is now combining all of those fillets into one feature. Why would you want to do that? Well, if you know straight from the off that you're going to fillet these edges, you can combine them all into one feature, which makes managing them a little bit easier. You don't want fillets scattered all around, all the way through your browser. So it just makes managing it a little bit more easy. And I guess that is really the only benefit to it. There are downsides to doing that. Either way, it's up to you. You do it the way you want to do it. There's no real right or wrong way to do it. I guess just touching on something else as well whilst we're on the topic. It is best practice to, if you can, place fillets onto your model as late on in the model's design as possible. Why? Because when you create a fillet, what you're essentially doing is you're removing edges. So I've created a fillet here, and I've removed a solid edge. Okay? If we just move side on, there was a right angle here. It's now gone, and it's replaced with an arc type smoothed fillet. So if I'd done that very early on, and then say for example I wanted to create the sketch to place these holes, I don't have a solid right angled edge line to reference the position of that hole from. It's now been removed by the fillet. So because that was done earlier on in the design, that hole can be placed properly according to the true model edge, and the fillet is placed later in the model's design without a problem, without affecting the placement of this hole. So it is just best practice to try and put the fillets on as late as you can. Okay, I'm going to delete this fillet, and then let's look at some other things that we can do. So that's the different selections that we've got. Now you've got this little button here. You see this one here? Have you ever seen that before? Have you ever wondered what that is? Have you ever clicked it and you've gone, what the hell does this mean? What's a tangent? What's a G2 fillet? Have you ever wondered that? Well, today's your lucky day, because I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. Education. Right, well, let's have a look. Where are we going? We're going down here. Right. Oh, I love this. This is so juicy. Right, so I'm going to start the fillet command again, and I'm going to place a fillet on this edge here, and then I'm going to look side on. Right, there we go. So this fillet, by default, when you place a fillet, every fillet that you place, unless you change it, is going to be what's known as a tangent fillet. If I just hover the cursor over it, tangent fillet. The G2 fillet applies a very, very minor aesthetic change to the contour of the fillet. The tangent fillet, if you think of the blend of the fillet here as it comes away from the final edge here on the solid model, it's coming out at a perfect tangent. Right? If you think about a tangent is a circle. Yeah, it's a perfect circle. So you could stencil a circle onto this model, and that arc would follow the exact shape of a circle. And it'll be a 2 mil radius circle. So that's what a tangent is. If you change this to a G2 fillet, it changes very well. Actually, that's quite a dramatic one. This one, but this is no longer a circle. No, the fillet is actually exiting the edge in like a spline fashion. It's sort of coming out in a very smooth fashion, and then it blends off and then sort of joins into the next edge. It's known as a G2 fillet, but if you go from tangent to G2, you can actually see the difference. It is quite dramatic when you look side on, but if you zoomed out, you can't really tell. In terms of manufacturing, do you need to do this? No. Of course you don't. No. If you do metal brackets and you just want to get rid of an edge, you don't need this. This is mainly for people that work in product design, plastic parts, consumer products. When those guys need sort of more aesthetically pleasing designs, then they would be interested in the likes of the G2 fillets. But us working with metal and big frames and fabrications and stuff, you couldn't give a monkey's. But it's good to know what it is. That's what it does. Tangent and G2. But like I said, when you zoom out, you can't tell any different. It doesn't look any bloody different when you zoom out. If you were to just open this model and someone else has done that, you wouldn't be like, he's done a G2 fillet there. Daphne. No, of course you don't know. It doesn't look any different. Alright, let's go back to this one here. Right. Jump back into the fillet command. So that's the middle selection options discussed. What else have we got? On the right hand side, selection modes. Have you ever played with these? Have you? Probably not. Well, you might have done. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I don't know who you are. Yeah. Write a comment down. Tell me who you are. I'm waffling now. Let's get back on point. By default, the selection mode for placing a fillet is edge. Now you might be thinking, well, what's the difference between edge, loop, and feature? The difference between these three is what your cursor selects and how it chains the edges when you pick an edge. So, for example, if I was to pick this edge here, it picks up the entire loop around this bracket, and the reason it does that is because there's no sort of harsh breaks, there's no right angles, there's no disjointedness in the edges. It's one continuous loop. However, let's just cancel this and come back into fillet and then select the back edge here. notice how it doesn't. Notice how it only selects the top. Sort of, it goes upwards and it bends around and it comes back down, but it's not continuing down here. And that's because we've got a right angle break in the edge. Yeah, so that's what edge does. Same with, if we were to pick this edge here, it'll only select like one continuous line. Where that line ends, it won't carry on the selection. If you change this to loop, however, right, let's cancel out and come back in, select loop. And I was to select this back face now. Look what it's starting to do. It's starting to detect loops, and it will create a fillet based on the looped edge that you've selected. It'll continue on that edge, loop it around until it finishes, and it comes back on back on itself, if you know what I mean. What you can also do as well, if you're struggling to pick up the edge, so I want to pick up the edges on this face here, but it's not doing it. Just hover your cursor over the edge until you get the select other prompt. If it doesn't pop up, just select other, and then you can define loop 1 or loop 2. There we are. There's the loop that I was trying to pick up, and then we can do what we were doing before. We can change the radius, and there's that one continuous edge loop filleted. And notice how it's also gone around this feature here because it's picked up the entire edge loop. So that's loop selection. What else we got? Feature. Right, feature will look at what your cursor's hovering over, and it will detect the 3D feature below your cursor. Extrusions, revolves, sweeps, lofts, any 3D feature that you've placed, and it will try to put a fillet edge on all 3D edges associated with the feature that your mouse is hovering over. So, for example, well, you can tell it instantly when you're mousing over. It's now picking up, rather than edges, it's now picking up features. So this thing here, I'm assuming, I didn't do this design, but I'm assuming it's this sweep. Yeah, it's that sweep there. So it'll now let us place a fillet on all the edges as best as it can to do with that sweep feature. It hasn't done these outer edges. I'm assuming there's a reason for that, but if we click OK, it's now placed a fillet where it thinks is appropriate for that 3D feature. And that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. And that's what the feature selection method will do for you. Down below, we've got these two here, all fillets and all rounds. Now this is, when I used to do Inventor training courses, we used to have a giggle with this one, because it's like you're filleting a fillet. How did anyone in Autodesk expect anybody to try and get their head around that? I want to place a fillet on all fillets. It makes no sense whatsoever. What it should say, and what it should be reworded to, is all concave and all convex edges. When you select all fillets, this is all concave edges. When you select all rounds, this is all convex edges. So internal and external edges, if you know what I mean. If you were to select both of these ticky boxes, it literally will place a fillet on every single edge in your model. So there is no edge in this model now which hasn't got a fillet about to be applied to it, other than the ones that have already had a fillet placed on them. You do have to be a little bit careful with this one because it will put a fillet on the likes of, screw holes, bolt holes, anything that you've done, tapped holes. You obviously wouldn't place a fillet on these edges here. So you're a little bit stumped for that, so you do have to be a bit careful with it, but that's what that one does. I'll just do it just for clarity. Ooh, yeah, you also have to be careful because it may not be able to put a fillet on every single edge. If you're applying a single thickness to every single fillet edge, there might be some that it just can't do it on. But if it can't, it gives you the warning, and it'll just go ahead and do the ones that it can do. Okay, what else we got here? Well, that's the sort of basic selection methods for fillet. Picking normal edges, defining how you're selecting, what you're selecting, and then doing sort of a big sweep. Did you know that you've got completely different fillet types here on the left hand side? We're using edge fillet mode. Did you know there is a face fillet and a full round fillet? Did you know you can do variable fillets and modify setbacks? Well, if you didn't, boy oh boy, you're in the right video, because we're going to look at that right now. Variable fillets. What on earth is a variable fillet? Well, a variable fillet is you picking an edge, right, and changing the radius of the fillet as it sweeps along the edge. Oh, snooze. Well, yeah, kind of, but you never know when this might come in handy. A variable radius fillet it's fairly easy to do actually. All you do right? You start your fillet command, you click variable, and then you pick an edge that you want to create the variable fillet on. It gives you a start and an end point, right? That's pretty self-explanatory, right? And it kind of gives you a bit of decent feedback as well. You see this orange edge here? That's start. Start is in blue, and then that's highlighted there in orange. When you click end, that's the end point there. And what it's saying here is at the start, the fillet's going to be 1 mil. At the end, the fillet's going to be 1 mil. So there's actually nothing variable about this at the moment. However, what it then needs you to do is pick additional points along the edge of the fillet. So as you move your mouse along the edge, right, let's just zoom around so we can see this a bit clearer. Right, that's the edge there. So we can say, right, I want to change the radius when the fillet hits this point, and then this point here. Right, so that's point 1 is this one here, point 2 is that one there, and then point 3 is that one there. So point 1, if you need to be really specific about this, you've got the position value here, and the position value is a decimal format. So the start is 0, the end is 1. Quarter of a way along the edge is going to be 0.25, right? Halfway along is going to be 0.5. 3/4 of the way along will be 0.75, right? You know what I mean. Then you can go 0.6, you can go 0.8, and you'll know, I'm sure you can figure out whereabouts that'll be. Then what you can do is start changing the size of the fillet at those exact points. So we can say, right, at the end of the fillet, I want it to finish at 2 mil, right? And you can see from the preview, it's going to be 1 mil, 1 mil, 1 mil, 1 mil, and then it does a sharp jump up to 2 mil. Well, we can start changing that. We can say, right, also start at 2 mil, yeah? Point 1, go to, I don't know, 1.5 mil, point 2, 1 mil, point 3, 1.5 mil again. And you can see what it's doing, it's changing the fillet radius as it goes along. 2, 1.5, 1, 1.5, 2. And you can mess around with that to your heart's content. Entirely up to you how you play with this. And then we can click OK, and there's your variable radius fillet. World's your oyster with that. Go nuts with it. Do what you want with it. It'll do its hardest. It'll try its hardest to respect the blends that you do. It'll try and do the formulas and the calculations to make sure the fillet can actually work. If it can't, you'll get that familiar error message, and it'll say, try again, do something different. And that's a variable radius fillet. Hey, snazzy, yeah? Right, what's a setback? Eh? What's a setback? Right, a setback is when you have a fillet which blends from multiple edges into a single point. So if I was to say I want to create a fillet here, here, and here, right? This little intersection here is the setback. So what we can do is we can select the setbacks tab, click this intersection, and Inventor will control how the fillet blends between those 3 points. So at the moment, let's just zoom so we're looking head on. There you go. Right, so at the moment, it's setting back the blend 2 mil on each edge. Now, for most people, that is absolutely fine, right? If you don't even give a shit, you don't have to do anything at all. You don't even have to click the setback option. But if you are into the world of consumer products and you need it to be, perfectly aesthetically pleasing, and you need to think about injection molding and all that sort of stuff, well, you can start thinking about changing the setback numbers. So edge 1 is this one here. Edge 2, no, that one's edge 2. Where's edge 1? Why is edge 1 not highlighting? Okay, that's really right. Edge 3, edge 1, edge 2. Right, you can, so it goes that way, but it doesn't go that way. Brilliant Autodesk, well designed. So edge 2, what we can do is we can say, if you wanted to, I can change that to 4 mil. Maybe not. Maybe that doesn't like it. 3 mil. No, still doesn't like that one. 2 mil. Alright, so okay, so it doesn't like anything more than 2 mil. That's not going to work. Fine, whatever. We can probably lower it. Yeah, we can. We can see what it's doing. I'm working on a very small model here, so the numbers are a bit limited. But there you go. That looks absolutely hideous, but I'm sure you get the point. Alright, so that's what the setbacks do. What else can we do, though? What else can we do? Well, that's the majority of the commands up here. We've got 2 more options to look at. We've got a face fillet and we've got a full round fillet. A face fillet is probably best if I move across to a different model for this one. A face fillet is a different and an alternative method for placing a fillet. It's for occasions when you don't have an actual edge to place a fillet on. Now, this model here has been designed intentionally to highlight and demonstrate the capabilities of the face fillet. So if you look at this one here, if we were to try and place an edge fillet around the bottom of this model, right, it's not going to work because the edge lifts just there. You can't place a fillet all the way around there. It'll end up going up and above and it'll just look messy. And we've also got a complete break here in the sidewall. It can't put a fillet there, there's no material to blend it to. So this is what the face fillet is all about. And what we do is we go into the fillet command, we select face fillet, and then you pick 2 face sets. Now by default it will optimize for single selection, so you pick one face and essentially it's going to chain the faces around that shaft. You pick your second face set and it's going to blend a fillet how it sees appropriate between those 2 face sets, ignoring any breakages in the surface, any breakages in the sidewall, any lifts, any gaps. It's going to ignore those and it just blends a fillet all the way around them. It's almost, very almost, like a weld. Not quite though. You can change the radius if you want, but if you're happy enough with the result, you can click OK. What it will also let you do, the face fillet, if you want to, is you can select face fillet and you can pick 2 objects which are completely separated from each other. So we can pick this face here and this face here, and it will blend material between the 2 of them how it sees fit. There you go. And that's face fillets. The final type of fillet is something which I will bet my bollocks to a barn dance that you will have just wished you'd seen this sooner. You'd have probably come across a scenario where you've thought, do you know what, I really could have used that. It's for times when you need to create a round between, well, let's have a look, right? Rather than just talking about it, I'll just show you it. This edge here, I want to create a perfect fillet coming up here, like that. Yeah, I want a full round fillet, and I want it to go all the way up this strengthening beam here. How would you do that normally? Well, quite difficult actually, very difficult. You'd maybe have to create 2 fillets and get the sizes, you know, bang on so they meet up in the middle. It would be a bit messy. To do it properly, you would go into the full round fillet option. You pick 1 side set. Again, it's optimized for single selection, so it don't have to pick multiple faces. We just pick this side. You pick 1 face on the center, and that will chain all these edges even though it doesn't show you it in the preview. And then you pick your second side face and it will create that full round fillet between all 3 sets of faces. Click OK. Look at that. Look at that. It's looking delicious. It's looking delicious. And I think that's it. I think that's probably all you really need to know for fillets. Yeah, I think I have no idea again how long this video's gone on for. Probably far too long again. I don't give a fuck. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully you found that useful, guys. I don't think I can really go any further on that. If you did find that useful, please press like, comment on the video down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It's the best indication I have, other than the kind words from the guys that have been watching the videos, that people are interested and they want to see more. So yeah, thanks very much guys, and until next time, cheery bye.